We did what we could to bring justice for my baby girl.
Tonight, in the wake of another not guilty verdict, a growing community supports the family and the memory of Tina Fontaine.
Her story is a lot of people's story, but it's also one of the worst cases that I've ever heard.
The continued story of one mom hoping to reunite her family in our series, Perspectives on Child Welfare.
To come and take our culture and not even to ask or have any consideration like that is not right.
And a respected carver asks how his totem design could end up in an unexpected place. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Less than 24 hours after a jury acquitted Raymond Cormier in the death of Tina Fontaine, thousands took to the streets of Winnipeg to honor the teen. Brittany Hobson was there and brings us the story.
We love Tina, and we will show her how much we love her.
Dozens of drums beating as one filled the streets of Winnipeg Friday morning. More than 1,000 people gathered to honor the life of 15-year-old Tina Fontaine. On Thursday, a jury found Raymond Cormier not guilty of second-degree murder in the killing of Fontaine, sending a ripple across Turtle Island.
We all feel it because it could have been our daughter, it could have been our granddaughter. We don't want this to continue. We want it to stop.
Fontaine's 72-pound body was pulled from the Red River, wrapped in a duvet filled with rocks in August 2014. Cormier was charged in December 2015 after a lengthy investigation. Outside the courthouse on Thursday, Grand Chief Sheila North said justice still needs to be served.
And it might not be this accused person that took her life, but someone took her life. That fact remains, and we must get to the bottom of it.
At Friday's march, Thelma Fable, who is Fontaine's primary caregiver, was the first to address the crowd.
Thank you so much. My heart is just overflowing with love and gratitude for each and every one of you.
Fontaine was originally from Seguin First Nation. She was in the city for about 6 weeks before she was found dead.
Everything I tried to do failed to her. And what we all discussed last night, my son and my husband, we did what we could to bring justice for my baby girl.
When Fontaine died, there were renewed calls for a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Commissioners just wrapped up a hearing in Nunavut when the verdict dropped. Seguin Councillor Marilyn Kershane called out the commissioners for not attending.
Oh, they should have been standing here with us. They fly all over Canada. They could have flew over here and said, Thelma, we're here for you. We'll help you with the supports.
Her death also revived the Bear Clan Patrol Group. Co-founder James Fable says yesterday's verdict and the outcome from the Colton Bushy murder trial have left the community with no faith in the justice system.
I don't think anybody in my community really expected a guilty verdict. And that's what's sad. We don't even have the expectation of justice anymore.
Nahani Fontaine, an advocate for MMIW, said Fontaine represented so many missing and murdered women and girls.
She was our hope. She was families' chance at justice and at hope and at faith in the community and in the justice system. And we all failed her.
Other rallies are planned across Turtle Island over the weekend. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
People across the country are feeling the pain of the loss of another Indigenous child. In Toronto, Tina Fontaine was honored. Beverly Andrews was there.
People gathered at the Fort York National Historic Site in downtown Toronto to honor the life of Tina Fontaine and to be together in this time of grief.
The justice system doesn't work for us. It works against us, and it works to jail us.
Tina Fontaine's body was found in the Red River in Winnipeg, Manitoba. People here in Toronto marched down in silence to the shores of Lake Ontario.
It just reiterates this need for us to continue to come together as a community to look after one another, to show each other that we care and that we matter and that our lives are valuable and that we see each other and we see our own worth, even if that's not reflected back to us elsewhere.
People were able to share food and songs were sung for Tina.
everyone came together and for the greater good. It's not about ourselves, it's not about ego, it's to honor the life of Tina Fontaine, it's to honor our community, and being able to hold space for each other, for our families, for our own grief and mourning process. Like we need each other to heal.
Another gathering is scheduled for next Saturday in Nathan Phillips Square. Beverly Andrews, APTN National News, Toronto.
To Saskatchewan now, where the young man who shot and killed 4 people at a school and in a home in La Loche will be sentenced as an adult. The shooter cannot be named because he was under the age of 18 at the time of the crimes. He killed 4 people and wounded 7 others in the small community northwest of Saskatoon in January 2016. He has pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. And we would like to hear what you have to say about this or any other story. Here's how to contact us. Send an email to news@aptn.ca. Like our APTN National News Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter @APTN News, or go to our website, aptnnews.ca. On Thursday, Quebec's ongoing inquiry into relations with Indigenous peoples heard from the Atikamekw Nation. The main topic, child welfare services, but in a change of pace, the testimony focused on the positive. Specifically, the success of the Atikamekw have been keeping youth in need of child welfare in their communities. Since 2013, they've been able to keep between 80 to 100% of their kids from going to non-Indigenous foster homes by using elders and healing circles as part of youth protection services. Province of Quebec ceded total control over youth protection to the Atikamekw last month.
Shows that the system is working, and it also shows the trust that the members of the Atikamekw nations have towards our system, because our system is based on family values, by taking into consideration the culture, the traditions, and often also the language.
A mother desperate to get her children back is taken to Twitter. We'll continue that story after the break. Here's a look at Saturday's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, sunny and 7 above in Fredericton, cloudy and +6 in Halifax. Sunny and -13 for Happy Valley Goose Bay, -14 in Cartwright. The sun returns to parts of Quebec after a day of rain, +4 in Montreal. +4 in Windsor, London and Toronto. -3 under the sun in Timmins and Sioux Lookout. Over to Manitoba, -6 in Norway House and Thompson, a mild -9 in Churchill, sunny and -3 in Winnipeg and Dauphin. Over to Saskatchewan, -5 in Saskatoon and in North Battleford, -12 in Stony Rapids, sunny and 13 below in Uranium City. Welcome back. We're going to continue with that story we first showed you yesterday about Twitter Mom, a woman who is sharing details of her life and children online, even though it's against the law. Kathleen Martins picks up the story.
Yesterday I was asked for my children to go into permanent ward, but I'm fighting that. Today, 6 months free, going on free, doing all the programs they've asked of me, and I've done everything as of this day. And they've given
This is the usual way mothers have to get attention for the battles they're having with foster care. They beg for help, wave signs at a rally, and scream at politicians. But Twitter Mom is turning that on its head by posting details about her life and children here on social media, even though it's against the law.
They tried to quiet me by saying that they were going to sue me, charge me with a $50,000 fine and 2 years in jail, or both.
Because it's illegal to identify families in foster care, we can't reveal Twitter Mom's identity. we can't show you her smile, or the intricate jewelry she makes. Any one of those things might help identify her children, even though she's putting the information out herself on social media.
In the beginning, they refused to let me see my sons, so I took legal action and started the GoFundMe page, which brought a lot of attention, and started the Twitter.
We asked the government to talk about Twitter Mom and the child welfare agencies she's dealing with, but they refused, saying that would violate the children's privacy. And as this tweet shows, they want Twitter Mom to stay quiet too. She tweeted about that. Overall, it's just unbelievable that after 10 years, after all levels of government publicly admit the system is dysfunctional, I have to raise tens of thousands of dollars to get a lawyer to get my kids back. That's right. Twitter Mom had to hire her own lawyer. It's something that shocked her friend.
You know, she's a victim of domestic violence. CFS should have supported her and her kids to be together during that time, and the person was charged eventually, and so there's no reason for her not to have her kids, and yet it's been 10 years. So her story is a lot of people's story, but it's also one of the worst cases that I've ever heard.
The foster care system is powerful. Twitter Mom says they did make her stop tweeting, but only over Christmas, because she says social workers threatened to take away the visits she was promised with her children. She tweeted, "They only permitted my boys to visit if I agreed to a number of conditions, what I felt was punitive measures, including not tweeting when the boys were in my care and having random visits and inspections of my daily life by workers, including Christmas Day and other things." Now, Twitter Mom is back online and vows to keep tweeting her story, despite the risks. So maybe, just maybe, she can bring her children home.
Pretty much the agency is saying I'm not cooperating, but I find that how can you cooperate with somebody who's had your kids for 10 years?
So is that...
I am cooperating. It's just that I'm being a voice and making it public.
Kathleen Martins, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Researchers, land protectors, and community leaders met in Happy Valley Goose Bay this week to share their concerns about the Muskrat Falls Hydro Project. APTN's Justin Brake was there.
And we all know that when this is done and finished, that we're going to be left as a town council holding the bag of many of the things that needs to be fixed.
The mayor of Happy Valley Goose Bay isn't the only one concerned about the impacts of the Muskrat Falls Hydro Project.
You know, as Inuit, we've hunted and fished and harvested food from the lands, you know, since time immemorial. It's such a huge part of our culture.
Amy Norman says the independent expert advisory committee tasked with assessing the risk of methylmercury contamination in traditional foods should have been put in place years ago.
So for them to only kind of really seriously look at the methylmercury issue once it's, you know, 75, 85, 95% done, the Muskrat Falls project, it really is too little too late, I think.
Jacinda Beals recently interviewed residents of Mud Lake, which flooded last spring. An assessment determined the dam had nothing to do with the flood, but Beals says locals don't buy it and are living in fear.
They are terrified. It's every single interview, you could see it written on their faces how stressed they are. 12 people interviewed, 12 people broke down telling their story. Like 4 people have been diagnosed with PTSD. They worry about this every single day.
I humbly stand before you to offer a long overdue apology.
Justin Trudeau apologized to residential school survivors from this province last November.
It undermines our cultural health. It's just that simple.
But Tracy Doherty says federal support for Muskrat Falls will lead to similar outcomes.
Muskrat Falls is that same process, cultural genocide, and for federal loan guarantees to continue, they need to take a good look at that they're still being agents of cultural genocide.
By all accounts, Muskrat Falls is a terrible failure that will make us poorer, colder, hungrier, and sicker.
Memorial University sociology professor Steve Crocker says the government is prioritizing corporate interests over its own people.
Instead of providing security to the citizens and externalizing volatility into the market, they download the volatility of that market onto citizens with the hope that they can thereby tap into markets, gain more money, etc. But the net result of that is the production of a population that can't absorb those costs and become a kind of collateral damage or an injurable population.
Land protectors say they have no choice but to protect their families' health, food, and way of life.
We've appealed to every level of government. We've appealed to our Indigenous governments. We've appealed more broadly to the United Nations. I don't know that there's more that we can do.
At $12.7 billion and years behind schedule, Muskrat Falls is now expected to generate first power in late 2019. While hope for many here has diminished, some feel they have no choice but to keep fighting against the project. Justin Brake, APTN National News, Happy Valley Goose Bay.
A respected elder who carved a memorial totem pole in honor of his late mother is furious. That's because he says a beer company is using his art to sell beer. APTN's Tina House has the story.
It's got a little few teeth, right?
Here in Vancouver's iconic Stanley Park are the world-famous totem poles. Tourists from all over the world come here to take pictures and marvel at the beautiful art. Amongst those totem poles is the Rose Cole Yelton Memorial Pole. Rose's son Robert carved the pole in 2009.
On the very bottom is my mom, and she's the one that is holding all of us up.
This is the exact place that his late mother and other family lived in the last Squamish Nation village, known as Swahwe, before being moved on to reserves in 1935. They were given $1 for the land, and his mother was the last survivor of the village. In this picture, located on a plaque near the old village site, shockingly, the description calls the people that once lived here squatters.
My grandmother used to come here and sit here later, missing her home here, because that's where her house was.
A few months ago, his family was in Hawaii on vacation and saw this Bud Light beer display with the image of Robert's totem pole. And if you compare the two images, they are exact.
How could Budweiser do that? Just to come and take our culture and not even to ask or have any consideration like that is not right.
Shane Jackson, a former lawyer and now full-time artist, agrees that it's a blatant copyright infringement.
When you think about it, would they have been so arrogant to go and take a non-Indigenous artist's work? Do they come after our Indigenous artists' work because they know we don't have the resources to go after them in court?
Luckily for Yelton, a team of lawyers from across Canada and the U.S. have agreed to represent him pro bono and have ensured his copyright on his totem pole. For Robert, it's a personal insult because he's a recovering alcoholic since he quit in 1976. Since then, he's become a drug and alcohol counselor. You would never have allowed it to happen?
No, there's no way. Like I say, that's been my battle.
We reached out to Budweiser for comment, but did not hear back by the time this story went to air. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
What a story. To Six Nations now, where a state of emergency was declared Wednesday night after major flooding hit the territory. We're joined now by Matthew Miller, the fire chief for the territory. Fire Chief Miller, thanks for joining us. We understand that a few roads have been closed on the territory, and one of the main bridges is being closely monitored. What's the latest situation in Six Nations?
Currently, we're still in a state of emergency within the territory. A number of roadways that are still affected by the flooding. We do have a significant portion where we're cut off from 14 different families. At this time, we have an operation in place, and a joint effort between the City of Brantford Fire Department, Brant County Fire Department, and the Six Nations Fire and Emergency Services to reestablish contact with those families, check on their well-being, and see if they require any supplies.
How is the flooding affecting residents there?
It's having a significant impact on the community, especially from the emergency services perspective. Right now, we're pushed beyond our limits. We're relying on assistance from our neighboring municipalities. Approximately an hour after we declared the emergency on Wednesday, we had a house fire that occurred that completed our services, and we're still dealing with the fire investigation at the same time we're dealing with the emergency flooding situation.
Have you ever seen flooding like this in the area before?
Not in quite a long time, actually. We do have annual flooding that occurs typically later in the spring season. Right now, what is occurring is quite significant. It's having a very large volume of water that's coming through our territory at a very fast pace. It's something that doesn't happen on a regular occurrence. I think the last time the flooding was in the 1960s.
Fire Chief Miller, will let you get back to the good work at hand and appreciate you taking some time to tell us about what's going on there.
Thank you very much for having me.
Time for another quick break, but stick around. There's more to come. Here's the rest of Saturday's weather outlook. Picking back up in northern Alberta, -6 in High Level and Peace River, 3 below in Lethbridge and Edmonton, -4 in Medicine Hat. Over to the west coast, +7 in Victoria, Tofino and Campbell River. A cloudy day and -1 in Prince George and Smithers. To Yukon now, -9 in Dawson City, Mayo, Whitehorse and Watson Lake. Over to NWT and another mild day, -5 in Trout Lake and Fort Simpson. -12 in Sax Harbor, -15 in Pawlatuck and Fort McPherson. In Nunavut, -25 in Repulse Bay and Cambridge Bay. -32 in Clyde River, -33 in Resolute. Welcome back. A picture-perfect liftoff for the latest mission from SpaceX.
3, 2, 1.
The Falcon 9 soared into the dawn sky from a U.S. air base in Southern California. It's carrying a Spanish satellite that's capable of making radar images of the Earth and government for government and commercial purposes. The payload also includes 2 small test satellites for a system that's designed to provide internet access to remote areas.
A good separation of that first stage,
and we're about to lift off ourselves for the weekend, because that is it for APTN National News for this Friday. Thanks for tuning in. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night.